both sides from the corners of her mouth to the ears, creating a monstrous, Joker-like grin on the dead woman. It was a case Sophie had studied. Her dad had been a cop. She'd always known that she was going to join the force too. Cold cases had been bedtime reading. Even so, the horrible murder of Elizabeth Short was still being pondered and mused on by the best of them, law enforcement and armchair sleuths. While there had been confessions galore, most were easily dismissed as false. No one had ever been able to prove who Elizabeth Short's killer might be. "Are you all right now? Do you think you can give your statement to the officer?" Sophie asked Claudia Cooper. The woman nodded vigorously. "You must catch him, whoever did this." "Ma'am, I promise you, we and every officer in L.A. will be doing our best to capture this killer." No way out of it. This was going to be sensational. Most likely, the killer assumed that he or she would get away with the murder, just as they did back in the 1940s. Times were different now, Sophie thought. Forensic science had come a long way for one. The Yorkie whined suddenly, as if aware of the terrible situation. Afraid. He hadn't minded at all that his paws were under serious scrutiny. He seemed worried about his mistress. Yes, the whole city would live in fear. Women would be on extra high alert, wondering what they could possibly do to avoid the same horrible fate. Sophie led Claudia Cooper and her tiny Yorkie over to one of the patrol cars. The young officer quickly leaped to his feet to open the door to the rear for Claudia. He had his worksheet out. He nodded gravely to Sophie. He was ready to take the full statement. Sophie walked back over to where the pieces of the corpse remained in situ. Henry Atkins, police photographer, looked at her as she approached and shook his head, wincing. It was one of the worst crime scenes they'd ever seen, and they all knew it. "Finished. For now," he told her bleakly. Henry had a basset hound look about him, long jowls, pale blue eyes. He was in his early 50s, and she'd heard he was close to retirement. She nodded and looked around. Police officers were canvassing the neighborhood. Crime scene techs were busy gathering anything that might be evidence. A lot of what they would find would be chewed gum, bottle caps, and smashed fast food cups, but all of it would be collected. Any tiny piece might be of tremendous help in the investigation. She almost bumped into one tech, Lee Underwood. Young, blonde, handsome, and wire-muscled, he looked more like a surfer dude than a crime scene investigator. "Sorry," he apologized. "My fault," she told him. "I was just getting that butt," he told her, pointing to what remained of someone's cigarette, not more than the filter. "Cigarette butt," he added quickly, as if his intentions might be questioned even at such a scene. "I don't think that any of this garbage will belong to the killer," he said glumly. "This guy," he paused, looking over at the body, "this guy went by the book, the Black Dahlia book. And I think some kind of forensic book. He won't have made mistakes." "Everybody makes mistakes," Sophie said. He shook his head. "Yeah, so we say. But we'll need good luck to find this guy's." He collected the butt with a gloved hand, smiled grimly, and moved on. Sophie hunkered down between Vining and Dr. Thompson. It was a difficult place to be. The corpse was simply so horrifically displayed, just as she had been killed. Sophie couldn't begin to imagine the terror the woman must have felt as the knife came toward her face. They weren't scratches that created the Joker grin. They were deep gashes. There were so many other cuts on the body, as if chunks of flesh had been cut away. "Blunt force trauma?" she asked, looking up. Dr. Chuck Thompson, a big man with iron gray hair and a square, ruddy face, nodded gravely. "I'll have to get her to autopsy, of course. She wasn't killed here, and that's pretty obvious. I'd say, though, that her head took a good beating, enough to kill. And the knife wounds, they could have done it too. I mean, obviously she's been bisected, but death mercifully came first." Thompson was a dedicated man. He'd never married, and he was always ready to take on a case when others were begging out for one reason or another. He'd been in the county a long time and stayed stalwart despite the workload. He'd seen a lot, she knew. He grimaced. "She was alive when the gashes were made," Thompson said quietly. Death could often be cruel, but this woman had been brutally tortured. Grant Vining looked resolute. Like Dr. Thompson, he'd been in his job for a long time. Despite the difference in their tenure, Vining always mentored instead of being impatient with Sophie's comparative lack of experience. He also had a great capacity for listening. When other officers discovered something, he was grateful. He worked well with other cops and with law enforcement officials from other agencies. "Whatever gets it closed," he often told Sophie.